Okay, so I apologize for having gotten started a little bit late. They pushed the State of the Union address back by about 10 minutes, which makes sense because they usually, they all stand and clap while he walks through and shakes everybody's hand. So hopefully not a big deal for any of you who've been waiting. I see a few people in the chat. So this is what we'll have going. It'll look like this with the video up above me, and the chat's off. I guess it's that way, off to the side there, so that you can see when you send me a message. There's a bit of a delay between you sending it and then it coming to me and then me responding to it. So so it may take a little bit after you hit enter. So don't get too angry with me if I don't respond right away. But once the actual thing starts, we'll watch a little bit. I'll take your questions or comments and stuff, and I'll be taking notes during it as well for things that I want to talk about. And we'll pause it every once in a while and discuss, and you'll get my thoughts and probably a lot of fact checking, I assume. That's kind of how it went the last few times we've done this. So before we actually get started, is my volume and everything all right, or does it need to be turned up? Because now would be the time to do that. You are welcome, Colt. I did this last year during his joint address. I guess it wasn't really a State of the Union since he wasn't president for long enough yet. They usually don't do a State of the Union their first year. So it was an unofficial State of the Union. And I also did it for the third presidential debate. But back then, I only had 400 or 500 subscribers. So I've grown quite a bit since then. So I have no idea how many people are in right now. And I'll check that stuff out at the end. So you don't need to worry about telling me. But awesome. I'm glad everything is coming through good. I will be muted while we're watching that just so that you don't hear me cough or drink water or anything silly like that. But yeah, so I've heard a little bit of what other people are expecting to hear. I'll give you some of my thoughts on. Make sure that we're configured. So, it's really hard to predict what he's gonna say. Let me switch out since we're not. It's really hard to predict what Trump is going to say, as you might imagine. The last State of the Union, he kind of put on the president mask, I guess, and he held it together for a little while. He didn't say anything too outlandish, but who knows? We could expect either him to be the presidential or more of what we usually see on Twitter, which I actually don't follow Donald Trump on Twitter. I just every once in a while check in, especially when I see people are talking about him. So we could get a whole range of stuff. So let's see. I'll divide this into two categories, right? If he pretends to be presidential, or if he puts on the presidential mask, I would expect to hear a lot about his tax cuts that passed recently, but doesn't go into effect until this year. So your 2017 taxes that you should be filing soon, which I will be doing a video about. I have 2 videos already from last year, but I will be doing a new one. So be on the lookout for that. That's my next video, actually. But I expect him to be talking about his tax cuts, especially since a lot of corporations announced that. Let me mute this just in case it kicks in. A lot of corporations announced huge bonuses for various employees like AT&T and Comcast and Walmart. Um, and then they also immediately after that, like giving $1,000 to every employee, they announced thousands of layoffs. So he probably won't mention that part, I imagine. He'll probably just talk about the tax cuts and the bonuses. The tax cuts, by the way, since I've been working on the video, um, they do help almost everyone. They help me, they help most of my friends that I've spoken to, um, but they help out the rich significantly more. So everyone gets kind of a break with these tax cuts, um, but the rich get quite a huge break. Um, they are significantly helped out a lot more. Let's see, got quite a few people talking. Yes, Little Blue Boy just mentioned the next thing I was going to talk about. If he doesn't keep his presidential mask on, I really hope he doesn't do this, but it's Trump, he might. He'll probably kind of poke at North Korea a little bit, which is, I really hope he doesn't do that. I mean, North Korea is one of those situations that I am glad I'm not in the military anymore, because when that gets started, it's gonna be bad. Um, yeah, of all the places I would have to go, that's my least. Uh, that's probably bottom of the list. I'd rather go anywhere else. Um, North Korea, I really hope he doesn't jab at them anymore. He might talk about Iran, and the terrible nuclear deal and various the Paris Climate Agreement, how he got us out of that. So he deregulated. Actually, he didn't do anything in regards to that aside from pulling us out of the deal, which it was a non-binding agreement anyway. There was no enforcement. It was just kind of a gentleman's agreement that we would pinky promise to try and reduce our emissions. It wasn't that there wasn't any penalty to not doing it. So he'll probably talk about that, talk about various deregulation. He probably won't bring up net neutrality because that one is that's a bipartisan against deal. Like, most people were for net neutrality, and if you weren't, I don't know what I can say to convince you, aside from a few analogies, I suppose. The way internet was treated prior to the repeal was the internet was like electricity or water, meaning that you paid for how much you used, but not what you used it for. So you would pay for running your refrigerator all day, but that would cost the same as running your lights. So the internet operated the same way. You could use the internet for whatever you wanted. It was all data was treated equally. With the repeal, now they can have a refrigerator surcharge on your electricity bill, or whatever else that they deem a TV or a cable box surcharge, whatever. They can now do that with the internet. It sounds ridiculous when I talk about it for electricity. Like, why would they charge you extra for using it to power this, or using water for a bath instead of watering your lawn? That's what they can do with internet now. It's they can charge you extra for social media or streaming or whatever they want, and they're already starting to do it with what they call zero capping, and that's when they partner with Hulu, for example. Hulu is free when you sign up with our service, and that already kind of eliminates competition, makes you more inclined to use Hulu over Netflix, which I don't know why you would ever do that, but yeah. I suppose for anyone who hasn't watched any of my previous live streams, I uh, during these live streams is when you will get the unfiltered partisan knowing better. You won't. I won't try to stay middle of the road. I'm no fan of Trump. I didn't vote for him. Uh, yeah. When it comes to my own personal political opinions, I consider myself to be a little left of center. I've voted for Republicans and Democrats in the past, um, but I'm very much not a fan of Trump. I was afraid. Uh, you can look. You can look this up in my. I don't remember which one it was, either the debate or the State of the Union, but I said I was afraid of him becoming president because of what he was going to allow in society, especially when it came to the racism bit. And, just a few months ago, they had the Tiki Torch March, and everything I was kind of worried about was happening, and that's kind of a bummer. So I'm no fan of him, but I am going to try and, I'm not just going to point out and laugh when he's sniffing too much because he clearly used something to keep on his toes or whatever. I'm not going to, hopefully anyway, won't make fun of him for his speaking style or his grandiosity or whatever. I am going to try and be objective, but just know going in, I'm not a fan of him or his policies. I've waffled for quite a bit here. They have not started yet. They haven't even started the stream yet, so we're still good on time. I don't expect him to talk about the shutdown, which lasted 3 days last weekend. Because here's the thing about that shutdown. The Democrats gave him the wall that he campaigned on, the wall that he wanted this whole time. They gave it to him in trade for some Dreamers things, which he totally said he was for. But once they gave him the wall, he backed away, and it caused the shutdown. Why? Why would he do that? Two things. First, so that he could blame the Democrats for it. He might mention it in saying that it's time to end the partisan blah blah blah, but the thing is, the Republicans control every branch of government right now, so this is on him. But his supporters will believe him. They will completely believe that it was the Democrats' fault. So that was the first reason, so he could blame the Democrats. The second is because I think, and I've heard other people say this as well, he wants to campaign on the wall in 2020. The wall is much more useful as a campaign slogan, build the wall, than it is as, well, yeah, we started, we've got about 500 feet done, it's going to take a lot longer than we thought, and it's probably not going to be all that effective. That's not a great 2020 campaign strategy, whereas build the wall, stop the obstruction, stop illegal immigration, that'll get his base riled up, and in his mind, hopefully get him reelected. So I think he intentionally didn't take the deal because he wants to campaign on the wall. I don't know what he's going to say about the Dreamers. He seems to go back and forth. If you don't know what a Dreamer is technically, I believe they're technically called undocumented immigrants. It's people who were brought here as children by their parents, who are themselves then illegal immigrants. These were kids. They don't have a choice in where their parents take them. I didn't have a choice in what state I lived in when I was a kid. That was all up to my parents. And it's the DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. These are those kids, and what are they going to do? They can't go back home. This is the only home that they've ever known. They speak English. they've lived here most of their lives, um, and I really don't think that any politician really wants to start kicking them out. There's something like 600,000 of them. It would be a disaster for them to do that, but they also don't want to give them a way in, because at least for the Republicans, that would be likewise a disaster, because you can't. You're never going to get reelected if you let in 500,000 illegal immigrants. So yeah, I don't know what they're going to say or what he's going to say about that. I've been ignoring the chat here. Let me scroll back through here and see. A lot of you, yeah, are probably going to be doing drinking games. That's fine. Enjoy. I will not. I don't want to die tonight anyway, or any soon. I don't want to die because of President Trump. How about that? Okay. Let's see. Okay. I do watch John Oliver's show. I reference it a lot, especially in my past videos. This is in response here. I am annoyed that he takes like 3 months off all the time, but that's, they all do that. Whatever. The underlighting. This is actually not I wish I could show you, but then I'd mess up my whole setup here. I have a desk lamp. That way, it's over there, and then the screen. So the desk lamp is kind of a yellowish, and then the screen is a bluish. So it does look kind of cool, I guess. Yes, I did vote for Republicans in the past, and there's really nothing stopping me in the future if we get a decent one. The problem is, and this was my very first video actually on gerrymandering. The divide has become so extreme now. And I know there are a few people watching who disagree with me on that. But to me personally, the divide between Republicans and Democrats has gotten much wider over the years. Whereas we used to be, mostly in the center. So depending on what the particular candidate wanted, I could go either way. But now, I think mostly since 2008, with McCain, Palin, and Obama, it's split a lot. And I find myself more towards the Democrat side, but I do disagree with them on many things. So I'm not fully over there. I am definitely not an SJW. I get called everything in my comments. I get called a white supremacist, a racist, a Nazi, and then I get called the other end, a libtard cuck and all that. It's actually kind of funny to see that happen. But that's I like ferret. Oh, well, I'm glad that you are joining us. A-Shot. I know your real name, obviously, but I'm not gonna. So they still have not started the State of the Union. So that's what we're waiting on right now. But yes, I have been called all the names in my comments as wow, there is no way. Don't be a culpus. Sure, let's go with culpus. You can look through my past videos and see, depending on the topic anyway, I get called them all. People who only watch the beginning of the racism video, my Confederate statues video, if they only watch like the first half, they call me a racist. If they watch the whole thing, they call me a libtard. That's kind of where I'm at. I consider myself, like I said, to be very center, probably left of center, but lot of my views don't conform with either side. So to the extremes, I seem like the opposite. And I've actually been working on a video idea related to that, and how to disagree and stuff. Let's see. To Little Boy, they might be starting. If they do, I'll switch it over. To Little Boy about he can't campaign on the wall in 2020. We'll watch him try. I guarantee you he will, especially if he doesn't get the funding he wanted, which he got but still didn't take. It's a very weird situation that they offered it to him and he still didn't take it. But yeah, anyway, yes, it is a Republican-controlled House, Senate. Although I can't remember the exact number. They don't have a supermajority. You need 60 for a supermajority. They don't have it, but they do have over 50. So I want to say 54, but I'm sure maybe someone in the comments can help me out with that, with the exact numbers. But the Republicans control the Senate, but they don't have a supermajority, so they can't stop filibusters. So they control Congress for the most part. They have the presidency, and they pretty much have the Supreme Court now with Gorsuch coming in. So yeah, they have it all. There's no reason they can't do whatever it is that they want to do, but they're not. They can't fully repeal Obamacare or the ACA, but they have gutted it in several ways. They got rid of the individual mandate. I think well, I know for a fact it wasn't last year, but I think it's starting this year. You don't have to have it. I really don't recommend you do that. That's a huge gamble on your part. If you don't have medical insurance and you don't get sick or get in an accident, you win. You got, okay, they're all clapping and stuff. So yeah, if you don't get sick or have an accident, you win. But if you get sick, you lose terribly, horribly. So, get insurance or whatever. Don't gamble like that. So I have it muted because who cares about them clapping and stuff. But yes, there's going to be a delay, right? If you're here because you want to watch, okay, if you're here because you want to watch the State of the Union, there are plenty of other places to go do that. You're here because you want to hear my comments on it. At least I hope. If that's not what you want, go somewhere else, because there are plenty of other places to watch this without me interjecting. But we're going to pause it occasionally, and I'll read out some of your comments and some of the things I have to say about it, and that's how it'll go. And we'll go as long as we need to. The speech itself is usually 40-45 minutes, maybe. So if we're here an hour or an hour and a half, then we are. But yeah, let's go ahead and start listening.
Members of Congress, I have the high privilege and the distinct honor of presenting to you
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Vice President, members of Congress, the First Lady of the United States, and my fellow Americans. Less than 1 year has passed since I first stood at this podium in this majestic chamber to speak on behalf of the American people and to address their concerns, their hopes, and their dreams. That night, our new administration had already taken very swift action. A new tide of optimism was already sweeping across our land. Each day since, we have gone forward with a clear vision and a righteous mission to make America great again for all Americans. Over the last year, we have made incredible progress and achieved extraordinary success. We have faced challenges we expected and others we could never have imagined. We have shared in the heights of victory and the pains of hardship. We have endured floods and fires and storms. But through it all, we have seen the beauty of America's soul and the steel in America's spine. Each test has forged new American heroes to remind us who we are and show us what we can be. We saw the volunteers of the Cajun Navy racing to the rescue with their fishing boats to save people in the aftermath of a totally devastating hurricane. We saw strangers shielding strangers from a hail of gunfire on the Las Vegas Strip. We heard tales of Americans like Coast Guard Petty Officer Ashley Leopard, who is here tonight in the gallery with Melania.
So I think it's weird that I'm pausing it already, but I already have a few things. Donnie commented, why are Democrats boycotting this? I actually hadn't heard that until you just said it, and then looking at the screen above here, there are many empty seats, so I have no idea. I mean, I imagine that they're boycotting it because of something he said or some policy he wants, but I don't think I've ever seen that, where they just straight up don't show up. That's a little strange. Someone commented earlier that they don't think he was going to mention Puerto Rico, and he actually did that in his opening few sentences there. He did mention the Cajun Navy, which isn't a real thing, by the way. It's just people with their boats, kind of like what happened at Dunkirk. Just people with their fishing boats going to save other people, which is kind of cool, but calling it the Cajun Navy makes it seem like some sort of government thing when it's not. So yeah, let's get back.
Ashley was aboard one of the first helicopters on the scene in Houston during the Hurricane Harvey. Through 18 hours of wind and rain, Ashley braved live power lines and deep water to help save more than 40 lives. Ashley, we all thank you. Thank you very much.
This is always some crazy publicity stunt. Yeah, I imagine there's going to be a few cops that he'll point out as well. Everyone has to stop and clap. Every president does this. Every president ever.
We heard about Americans like firefighter David Dahlberg. He's here with us also. David faced down walls of flame.
Okay, I was close.
To rescue almost 60 children trapped at a California summer camp threatened by those devastating wildfires. To everyone still recovering in Texas, Florida, Louisiana, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands, everywhere, we are with you, we love you, and we always will pull through together, always.
Does anyone else hear the cameraman clapping? It's very weird.
Thank you to David and the brave people of California. Thank you very much, David. Great job. Some trials over the past year touched this chamber very personally. With us tonight is one of the toughest people ever to serve in this House, a guy who took a bullet, almost died, and was back to work 3.5 months later. The legend from Louisiana, Congressman Steve Scalise. I think they like you, Steve. We're incredibly grateful for the heroic efforts of the Capitol Police officers, the Alexandria Police, and the doctors, nurses, and paramedics who saved his life and the lives of many others, some in this room. In the aftermath, yes.
That brings up something. I do have the super chat enabled. That's what happens when you donate some. Thank you for that, Austin. But this whole speech is gonna be half clapping. Like, that's just how it is. Every one of them. I imagine if I were there, I would get really tired of standing up to clap, and then everyone sits down, and then everyone stands up and claps again for the same person again. Yeah, that would get extremely tiring. So I can imagine those people boycotting it right now are pretty happy that they don't have to do that. But yes, I had written down, because I had mentioned this right before he pointed out the firefighter. Everybody does this. Every single president in the history of well, maybe not the United States. Every president since I have been paying attention anyway has brought in some person who's done something brave, or whose policies, or who is affected by his policies, usually good, of course. They're not going to be like, well, I took away this guy's job, sorry, bud. That's not going to happen. It's always going to be, this person this person was unemployed for the last 5 years under Obama, and now he has a job. They expect that. In fact, if I was going to play a drinking bingo, that would be on there. Someone I personally helped in the audience, it's going to be there. So be prepared for that.
In the aftermath of that terrible shooting, we came together, not as Republicans or Democrats, but as representatives of the people. But it is not enough to come together only in times of tragedy. Tonight, I call upon all of us to set aside our differences, to seek out common ground, and to summon the unity we need to deliver for the people. This is really the key. These are the people we were elected to serve. Thank you. Over the last year, the world has seen what we always knew, that no people on earth are so fearless or daring or determined as Americans. If there is a mountain, we climb it. If there's a frontier, we cross it. If there's a challenge, we tame it. If there's an opportunity, we seize it. So let's begin tonight by recognizing that the state of our union is strong because our people are strong.
I've also never seen a State of the Union where they didn't say it was strong. I imagine Abraham Lincoln in the middle of the Civil War said it was strong. I bet.
And together we are building a safe, strong, and proud America. Since the election, we have created 2.4 million new jobs, including 200,000 new jobs in manufacturing alone. Tremendous numbers. After years and years of wage stagnation, we are finally seeing rising wages. Unemployment claims have hit a 45-year low. And something I'm very proud of, African American unemployment stands at the lowest rate ever recorded.
All right, I'm about to have a heart attack over here, as I'm sure you've been noticing. Every sentence he says, it seems, just, oh, this is gonna be a long night, isn't it? So, he claims that he created 2.4 million jobs, which is an insane amount if it were true. I don't imagine it is, because that's a lot of jobs. There are 300 million, 320 million people in the United States, so he just created 1%. There's no way that number is accurate. He did mention 200,000 in manufacturing. I'm willing to bet he's going to specifically mention Carrier, which is the factory that he helped keep jobs in America before he was even president, which they're one of the one of the companies that announced mass layoffs during Christmas. So, no. He may have kept the jobs here for about a year, which was just long enough for him to get the headlines out of it, and then they yes, okay, I'll get to the comments here in a second. I'll talk about what I wanted to. He said unemployment is at its lowest rate in 45 years, which isn't necessarily true depending on what source you look at. If we're just going by the straight unemployment numbers provided by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which is what everybody goes by, yes, that number is true. That number, as we've probably heard over and over, even during Obama's presidency, Republicans would probably, or did say this, that number doesn't take into account people who stopped looking for work, people who are underemployed, that means you got a job that's part-time and you want full-time, you're no longer counted as unemployed. So, yes, most of the jobs created since the recession in 2009, 2010 have been part-time. So if you happen to get a part-time job, you're no longer unemployed. So you don't factor in. The actual, for real unemployment rate is definitely higher than what is reported, but I'll give it to him because it's the number we use for everybody. It's the number we use for Obama, for Bush, for everybody. But he did just, and this is what made me pause, mention black unemployment, which since I am on Twitter, I have seen him going after Jay-Z for unemployment. The black unemployment rate, the African American unemployment rate in the United States is at its lowest that it's ever been, but this has absolutely nothing to do with Trump. It's been falling, like, I'm sure I could pull it up, and I probably will while we're watching, and someone might be able to get it off of Twitter, but the unemployment graph for African Americans, it looks like this. It started under Obama and just went blue, and it's very low. It's still significantly higher than white people, um, but it is at its lowest. It has nothing to do with Trump. Trump has done very little aside from the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act passed a few weeks ago. Um, he didn't really pass any laws that affected the economy. To be honest, we went a good 6 or 7 months without him passing any legislation whatsoever. He did some executive orders, but when it comes to the economy, he definitely didn't do anything. So let me look through the comments here. Oh, we got a lot. Okay, aren't wages sinking? I don't know. I don't think they're sinking, but I don't think they're rising enough for him to take credit for it either. I definitely, I mean, minimum wage is still $7.25, so that hasn't gone up any. Seeing all of you make fun of the way I look as he's talking is great. If you're unemployed and you've given up, I don't believe, well, you do have to file taxes, but it's just going to be all zeros. So, I mean, you still have to do it, so do that. But yeah, let's continue with this. Like I said, he's probably going to say, he's probably going to mention specific companies that he kept jobs here for or who gave bonuses. I'd be on the lookout for AT&T, Comcast, Disney. Disney just do it, so I imagine they're going to be shutting down a production studio here soon. Okay, this is recorded, so if it actually happens, I can say I predicted it. Who else? Walmart. Walmart gave out $1,000 bonuses and then closed like 70 stores like the day after Christmas. I imagine he's going to name specific companies and maybe even Carrier. We'll see. We'll see.
And Hispanic American unemployment has also reached the lowest levels in history. Small business confidence is at an all-time high. The stock market has smashed one record after another, gaining $8 trillion and more in value in just this short period of time. The great news for Americans, 401k, retirement pension, and college savings accounts have gone through the roof. And just as I promised the American people from this podium 11 months ago, we enacted the biggest tax cuts and reforms in American history.
Okay, sorry, I just saw some comments, especially from, who is this? Anthony. Yes, the black unemployment rate did skyrocket during the recession, 2009, 2010. It skyrocketed for every American. And then it dropped. I only say under Obama because he was president at the time. Yeah, he has very little. The president has very little to do with the economy, and especially in creating jobs. So that is correct, Anthony. Where was the other one? Yeah, he's probably not going to mention the wealth gap, of course. And as I said, he did mention the tax cuts already, which, as I said before the speech started, it helps everybody, the poor people, but especially the rich people. So most of us watching right now are going to see well, not this year, but next year, we're going to see an increase in our tax returns, a lowering of our taxes paid, and that's going to be great. But the rich people are going to see a huge chunk disappear, whereas we might only see 10 or 20% reduction. They're going to see a much larger, much larger reduction. Another thing that they snuck into this tax bill is that these tax cuts expire in 2025. So that's just long enough for whoever becomes president next, well, assuming Trump gets reelected, but not in 2020, but in 2024, whoever becomes president next, these tax cuts will expire, and they get to blame that guy for raising taxes. This is something they always do. They kind of sneak in an expiration date on a tax bill or whatever, and it's always for the next president to have to deal with, kind of like kicking the can down the road. It becomes the next person's problem. So once you lower taxes like this, it's really hard to raise them again, but that's a completely separate issue.
Our massive tax cuts provide tremendous relief for the middle class and small business. To lower tax rates for hardworking Americans, we nearly doubled the standard deduction for everyone. Now the first $24,000 earned by a married couple is completely tax-free. We also doubled the child tax credit. A typical family of four making $75,000 will see their tax bill reduced by $2,000, slashing their tax bill in half. In April, this will be the last time you will ever file under the old and very broken system, and millions of Americans will have more take-home pay starting next month, a lot more.
Someone commented this also, only half of the House stands up sometimes, and that's when it's a partisan issue. This happens for every president.
We eliminated an especially cruel tax that fell mostly on Americans making less than $50,000 a year, forcing them to pay tremendous penalties simply because they couldn't afford government-ordered health plans. We repealed the core of the disastrous Obamacare. The individual mandate is now gone. Thank heaven. We slashed the business tax rate from 35% all the way down to 21%, so American companies can compete and win against anyone else anywhere in the world. These changes alone are estimated to increase average family income by more than $4,000. A lot of money. Small businesses have also received a massive tax cut and can now deduct 20% of their business income. Here tonight are Steve Staub and Sandy Keplinger of Staub Manufacturing, a small, beautiful business in Ohio. They've just finished the best year in their 20-year history. Because of tax reform, they are handing out raises, hiring an additional 14 people, and expanding into the building next door. Good feeling. One of Staub's employees, Corey Adams, is also with us tonight. Corey is an all-American worker. He supported himself through high school, lost his job during the 2008 recession, and was later hired by Staub, where he trained to become a welder. Like many hardworking Americans, Corey plans to invest his tax cut raise into his new home and his two daughters' education. Corey, please stand. And he's a great welder. I was told that by the man that owns that company that's doing so well. So congratulations, Corey. Since we passed tax cuts, roughly 3 million workers have already gotten tax cut bonuses, many of them thousands and thousands of dollars per worker, and it's getting more every month, every week. Apple has just announced it plans to invest a total of $350 billion in America and hire another 20,000 workers. And just a little while ago, ExxonMobil announced a $50 billion investment in the United States, just a little while ago. This, in fact, is our new American moment. There has never been a better time to start living the American dream. So to every citizen watching at home tonight, no matter where you've been or where you've come from, this is your time. If you work hard, if you believe in yourself, if you believe in America, then you can dream anything. You can be anything. And together, we can achieve absolutely anything.
All right, a lot of the things that I predicted he would say, he just went ahead and said. Where the various companies had given out huge bonuses, AT&T, Comcast, Walmart, various other places. Well, he specifically mentioned Apple. Disney also just did it, where they gave out $1,000 bonuses to all their employees. And then also, if you follow me on Twitter, I showed this as it was happening. They also fired and laid off a bunch of people shortly afterwards, because of course now when you look up Trump tax cut or whatever, you're going to see those headlines of Comcast gives $1,000 bonus, AT&T gives $1,000 bonus, and buried way down somewhere else entirely, it also lays off 20,000, shuts down 70 stores, whatever else. So pretty much as I said, he doesn't mention those, of course, and he didn't even mention the companies that ended up also simultaneously laying off people. There were a few other comments I wanted to mention. I've talked about the healthcare. I don't want to beat that too much, although I did write this down. He did repeal the individual mandate, which guts Obamacare quite a bit. The reason your car insurance is so low, at least for most people anyway, it's relatively low, is because everyone is required to have it. And that's what they were trying to do with the individual mandate. When everyone is required to have it, it brings costs down. Now, that didn't work for everybody, but a lot of people were able to get affordable health care, or health insurance rather, because of the individual mandate that brought prices down for most everybody. Again, not everybody. You can sit there and point at specific people that their premiums went up, and premiums go up every year, as they tend to do, just because, regardless of the law. Even with him getting rid of this individual mandate, your insurance rates are going to go up. They just are. That's life. It's the same as prices for everything going up. Milk goes up, gas typically goes up. So it's still, him repealing the mandate is going to make Obamacare implode and fall apart, and then he gets to point and say, haha, I told you it was going to implode, when in reality it imploded because his policies gutted it and made it implode. So yeah. And I now see people in the comments saying that their personal premiums went up, and I feel for you. I'm sorry. But like I said, we can point at people, and you may be included in that, where your premiums went up. But most people were able to get affordable health care out of that deal. So yeah, now you can gamble and not get insurance if that's what you want to do. I don't recommend it though. So yeah, all right, let's continue.
Tonight, I want to talk about what kind of future we're going to have and what kind of a nation we're going to be. All of us together as one team, one people, and one American family can do anything. We all share the same home, the same heart, the same destiny, and the same great American flag.
If he brings up the NFL, I swear, please.
Together, we are rediscovering the American way. In America, we know that faith and family, not government and bureaucracy, are the center of American life. The motto is, "In God we trust."
I made a video about that. The motto, that wasn't the motto until like 54 or 56. It's not what this country was started on.
And we celebrate our police, our military, and our amazing veterans as heroes who deserve our total and unwavering support.
I'm kind of against veteran worship with people too, just so you know.
Here tonight is Preston Sharp, a 12-year-old boy from Redding, California, who noticed that veterans' graves were not marked with flags on Veterans Day. He decided all by himself to change that and started a movement that has now placed 40,000 flags at the graves of our great heroes. Preston, a job well done.
sorry, really quick, just because Anthony asked, I am a veteran, so I'm not against veteran workers. I am against veteran worship, though. Um, I'm I'm a person. The rest of us are people, and it's really, really awkward when everyone turns to look at me and clap because I'm a veteran or whatever. This has happened a few times um, over the years, and it's always awkward. And um, you know, hire veterans and support veterans, but like we're not celebrities. Calm down, kind of. So that's what I mean when I said I'm against veteran worship, which is what he seems to be on about right now. So yes, and to answer your next question, yes, I do use the VA system, and it actually works pretty well for me. I'm the exception, though.
Young patriots like Preston teach all of us about our civic duty as Americans. And I met Preston a little while ago, and he is something very special that I can tell you. Great future. Thank you very much for all you've done, Preston. Thank you very much. Preston's reverence for those who have served our nation reminds us of why we salute our flag, why we put our hands on our hearts for the Pledge of Allegiance, and why we proudly stand for the national anthem. Americans love their country, and they deserve a government that shows them the same love and loyalty in return. For the last year, we have sought to restore the bonds of trust between our citizens and their government. Working with the Senate, we are appointing judges who will interpret the Constitution as written, including a great new Supreme Court justice and more circuit court judges than any new administration in the history of our country. We are totally defending our Second Amendment and have taken historic actions to protect religious liberty. And we are serving our brave veterans, including giving our veterans choice in their health care decisions. Last year, Congress also passed, and I signed, the landmark VA Accountability Act. Since its passage, my administration has already...
Okay, I didn't want to pause in the middle of a sentence, but I'm seeing the chat light up with some things, so I want to talk really quick. He mentioned making appointments for various judges. I believe, I'd have to look up the numbers on this, but he needs, like he hasn't filled some 400 positions in the executive branch, and I think there's still like 70 judge positions that need to be filled. And it's not obstructionism on the Democrats' part. He just hasn't named people. He hasn't appointed anyone to those positions. So it's a year in. It shouldn't take this long, I don't think. But anyway, he did mention standing up for the anthem. He did mention, yeah, people standing up for the anthem. As a veteran, I couldn't care less about making people stand up for the anthem. I personally support their right to kneel if they're protesting something. I don't believe in the keep your politics out of my football, because to me that's you saying, can you protest in a way that lets me continue to ignore the problem you're trying to bring to light, which is kind of not the point of protest. So I am okay with them protesting however they want. It's not disruptive, so I don't care. And it worked. Him taking a knee brought attention to the situation. Now Trump has flipped it to mean he's disrespecting the flag, which he's not really. In fact, he sat down the first time and no one cared, and a veteran told him to take the knee, so he took a knee, and that's when people started caring. So he did what a veteran wanted. He's not disrespecting veterans. It just seems to be kind of the hardcore right that seem to think that this is disrespectful. Fine. I disagree with them, though. As for the religious liberty thing, I made a video about this as well, the Jefferson's Wall video. And I've seen in the comments, and this is why I paused, this isn't just religious liberty for Christians. Yes, he did do the Muslim ban, which I am very much against, and that's part of the video. But the religious liberty part is currently 501c3 organizations, which are all charities and churches, cannot endorse political candidates, which makes sense. You don't want a church endorsing a political candidate. That's silly. They can push views such as being against abortion. Of course, right now I can't think of any other ones that they would push for. Death penalty, maybe, depending on the church. They can push those, but they can't push for specific candidates. And Trump and Pence want to get rid of that rule and allow churches to endorse specific candidates. So imagine the Mormon Church coming out and saying, we support Romney, or who is the recent McMullen. That would be allowed if they get rid of the Johnson Amendment. I don't think they have yet. But also, thanks to Citizens United, money is speech as well. So the same way that now PACs, super PACs, and corporations can donate unlimited funds, churches would be able to do that as well. And he labels this as religious liberty, when really what he means is opening the door to untaxable, unlimited political donations. So that's a door that I don't necessarily want open, not just because of the churches, though. I mean, while I would be it would weird me out to have the Catholic Church endorsing someone, it would open it up to all 501c3 organizations. So the Clinton Foundation, the Trump Foundation, Planned Parenthood, all of them could start donating unlimited, untaxable funds to political candidates if they get rid of this, which I imagine they'll put in some rule that doesn't allow Planned Parenthood to do it specifically. But this would be a very, I think, bad idea. But that's what he means when he says religious liberty, and not pro-Christians or anti-Muslim, although he is quite clearly anti-Muslim. This is what he's specifically talking about, is the Johnson Amendment. So, anyway, yeah.
removed more than 1,500 VA employees who failed to give our veterans the care they deserve. And we are hiring talented people who love our vets as much as we do. And I will not stop until our veterans are properly taken care of, which has been my promise to them from the very beginning of this great journey. All Americans deserve accountability and respect, and that's what we are giving to our wonderful heroes, our veterans. Thank you. So tonight I call on Congress to empower every cabinet secretary with the authority to reward good workers and to remove federal employees who undermine the public trust or fail the American people. In our drive to make Washington accountable, we have eliminated more regulations in our first year than any administration in the history of our country. We have ended the war on American energy, and we have ended the war on beautiful, clean coal.
Okay, sorry, there's no such thing as clean coal. There just isn't. What does he think? That they take coal and they put it in the bathtub and scrub it and then they burn it and there's no carbon release? It blows my mind that people think that there is such a thing as clean coal. There is not. Before the speech started, I did talk about him mentioning deregulation, which he has been doing a lot. I specifically mentioned net neutrality. I doubt he'll bring that up because it's very unpopular. But I'm now seeing the comments reacting to my face when he said clean coal. Sorry. Deregulation is not necessarily a good thing. Those regulations were put there on purpose for a reason, right? So, yeah. Anyway, he's gonna keep going. He's probably gonna talk about solar and wind and stuff. I don't know. Beautiful, clean coal. Those were his exact words. Beautiful, clean coal. Unbelievable.
We are now very proudly an exporter of energy to the world. In Detroit, I halted government mandates that crippled America's great, beautiful auto workers so that we can get Motor City revving its engines again, and that's what's happening. Many car companies are now building and expanding plants in the United States, something we haven't seen for decades. Chrysler is moving a major plant from Mexico to Michigan. Toyota and Mazda are opening up a plant in Alabama, a big one, and we haven't seen this in a long time. It's all coming back. Very soon, auto plants and other plants will be opening up all over our country. This is all news Americans are totally unaccustomed to hearing. For many years, companies and jobs were only leaving us. But now, they are roaring back. They're coming back. They want to be where the action is. They want to be in the United States of America. That's where they want to be.
Sorry, I wasn't expecting super chat donations, so I haven't made a policy. I was about to write, as you may have seen, thank you, but since I said thank you out loud to the previous person, I figured I would continue. Thank you, Alan, for that. But yes, as I've said in the comments just now, a lot of these production or manufacturing companies that were bringing jobs back had planned to do that before Trump. He's also neglecting to mention the ones that are closing down. So, you know, of course he's only going to point out the ones that make him look good. Someone also mentioned that he's only ever looking at the Republicans while they're clapping, and that's in the same vein. He's only acknowledging the ones that make him look good. That's kind of what Trump does. Yeah.
Exciting progress is happening every single day. To speed access to breakthrough cures and affordable generic drugs, last year...
Sorry, someone just commented, and this is something I had written down. He did just impose like a 30% tariff on solar panels from China. We can still sell to China, but from they will now cost significantly more, which will hurt solar energy overall in the United States. I think there's one or two companies that manufacture in the US that are, of course, happy about this because now foreign ones will cost significantly more, so they will see an increase in business. But yeah, he did deal quite a blow to the solar industry by doing that, just because it's way cheaper to manufacture that stuff over there. That's just, I mean, that's how it is with everything, iPhones and shoes and everything. So yeah, that's, sorry for interrupting again. I just wanted to get that out.
The FDA approved more new and generic drugs and medical devices than ever before in our country's history. We also believe that patients with terminal conditions, terminal illness, should have access to experimental treatment immediately that could potentially save their lives. People who are terminally ill should not have to go from country to seek a cure. I want to give them a chance right here at home. It's time for Congress to give these wonderful, incredible Americans the right to try.
I actually agree with this. One of the few policies of his that I agree with is letting people try experimental treatments if they're terminal.
One of my greatest priorities is to reduce the price of prescription drugs. In many other countries, these drugs cost far less than what we pay in the United States, and it's very, very unfair. That is why I've directed my administration to make fixing the injustice of high drug prices one of my top priorities for the year.
This is another thing, another policy of his that I agree with. We do pay way too much for prescriptions, and indeed all medical procedures compared to other countries. But when it comes to prescription drugs, it's something that we can easily compare. Even though stitches in the United States are the exact same as stitches in Norway or China, you can argue quality all you want. But when it comes to prescriptions, it's always the same, and we pay, in some cases, hundreds of times more than other countries, and that's simply because we have no regulation when it comes to that. And since, I mean, it's really complicated since the prescription drug companies deal with your health insurance rather than dealing with you as a patient. And where in other countries, the big pharma deals with the government, and the government has a lot more bargaining power than, say, Aetna or Blue Cross. Do those companies even exist anymore, or did they like merge? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Yeah, I agree with him on this one. They definitely need to do something about the prices of prescription drugs because they are insane compared to other countries. It just doesn't make sense for them to be so high.
And prices will come down substantially. Watch. America has also finally turned the page on decades of unfair trade deals that sacrificed our prosperity and shipped away our companies, our jobs, and our wealth. Our nation has lost its wealth, but we're getting it back so fast. The era of economic surrender is totally over. From now on, we expect trading relationships to be fair and, very importantly, reciprocal.
I hate to pause this so fast or so soon after the last one. What I used to do in the past was get like a whole list of things and then pause and talk about it, but he's just saying, he's throwing a lot out there that needs context and correction. He got us out of the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which I think was a bad move, personally, because basically what we did was say, okay, we're not going to be part of this. It was basically NAFTA for the Pacific, free trade and all of that across those countries, or reduced tariffs across all those countries. Pulling out of it was basically saying to countries like Vietnam and the Philippines and all the little ones. I keep thinking of ones that it doesn't affect, like Taiwan and Korea. They're going to be friends with us no matter what. But other ones, the Philippines, Thailand, stuff like that, they're now going to turn to China, who is now the major player in the TPP, which is still going to happen without us. So all we did was kind of take our ball and go home in that regard. They're just going to find a new ball and play without us. So pulling out of that, I think personally, was a bad idea. But related to that, he's also threatened to cut off foreign aid to various countries, specifically Pakistan. I imagine he's going to get to this soon, so when he does, I just won't pause it, but I'll make a gesture or something. Taking away foreign aid, this isn't just like allowance that we give to kids, right? This is money that they need. In certain countries, West African countries, they may be misusing those. But other countries, Pakistan, Israel, uh, whoever else we give it to, Guatemala, all those, um, they use that money for stuff. So if we don't give it to them, they're going to turn to someone else for it. Say Pakistan. If we stop giving them foreign aid, money that they need, they're going to turn to China or India or Russia, and they're going to get that money. So then in the future, when we're like, hey, Pakistan, vote with us on this thing, they're going to be like, not going to do it because you know, we're friends with China now. Like, you left us, remember? Don't you remember that? Now, whether, as Anthony just said, whether they actually need that money or need our money is up for debate. But they're going to get it from somewhere, whether it's from us or China or Russia. They're going to get it. And as much as you may think that we shouldn't be buying our friends, we do. That's just kind of how global politics works. So pulling out our foreign aid for various countries would be a bad idea, because it would basically be saying, okay, go find a new best friend, and they will. A specific example I can think of is the Suez Crisis in 52, 54, somewhere around then. Egypt had the Suez Canal, and it was operated by British and French. And when Egypt went through their little revolution, the British and French stopped supporting the Suez Canal, and they thought that Egypt would come crying back to them, like, please help us. Instead, they went right into the hands of the Soviets, and then Egypt became a second world country as a result, which was a huge blunder for the British, especially. You should watch The Crown if you haven't seen that. It talks about that very well. But yeah, if we throw our hands up and say we're not going to help you anymore, they're going to get the help from someone, probably an enemy. So it's not a good idea. Foreign aid accounts for so little of our budget, but that's separate. The amount of money or what they use it for, that's separate. The idea is they're not going to be our friends anymore if we stop giving them the stuff that they rely on, because someone else will. So.
We will work to fix bad trade deals and negotiate new ones, and they'll be good ones, but they'll be fair. And we will protect American workers and American intellectual property through strong enforcement of our trade rules. As we rebuild our industries, it is also time to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure. America is a nation of builders. We built the Empire State Building in just 1 year. Isn't it a disgrace that it can now take 10 years just to get a minor permit approved for the building of a simple road? I am asking both parties to come together to give us safe, fast, reliable, and modern infrastructure that our economy needs and our people deserve. Tonight, I'm calling on Congress to produce a bill that generates at least $1.5 trillion for the new infrastructure investment that our country so desperately needs. Every federal dollar should be leveraged by partnering with state and local governments and, where appropriate, tapping into private sector investment to permanently fix the infrastructure deficit, and we can do it. Any bill must also streamline the permitting and approval process, getting it down to no more than 2 years and perhaps even 1. Together, we can reclaim our great building heritage. We will build gleaming new roads, bridges, highways, railways, and waterways all across our land. And we will do it with American heart, American hands, and American grit. We want every American to know the dignity of a hard day's work. We want every child to be safe in their home at night. And we want every citizen to be proud of this land that we all love so much. We can lift our citizens from welfare to work, from dependence to independence, and from poverty to prosperity.
Thank you, little boy blue 40. And the odds are 0, of course.
As tax cuts create new jobs, let's invest in workforce development, and let's invest in job training, which we need so badly. Let's open great vocational schools so our future workers can learn a craft and realize their full potential. And let's support working families by supporting paid family leave. As America regains its strength, opportunity must be extended to all citizens. That is why this year we will embark on reforming our prisons to help former inmates who have served their time get a second chance at life. Struggling communities, especially immigrant communities, will also be helped by immigration policies that focus on the best interests of American workers and American families. For decades, open borders have allowed drugs and gangs to pour into our most vulnerable communities. They've allowed millions of low-wage workers to compete for jobs and wages against the poorest Americans. Most tragically, they have caused the loss of many innocent lives. Here tonight are 2 fathers and 2 mothers, Evelyn Rodriguez, Freddie Cuevas, Elizabeth Alvarado, and Robert Mickens. Their 2 teenage daughters, Kayla Cuevas and Nisa Mickens, were close friends on Long Island. But in September 2016, on the eve of Nisa's 16th birthday, such a happy time it should have been, neither of them came home. These 2 precious girls were brutally murdered while walking together in their hometown. 6 members of the savage MS-13 gang have been charged with Kayla and nieces' murders. Many of these gang members took advantage of glaring loopholes in our laws to enter the country as illegal, unaccompanied, alien minors and wound up in Kayla and Niece's high school. Evelyn, Elizabeth, Freddie, and Robert, tonight everyone in this chamber is praying for you. Everyone in America is grieving for you. Please stand. Thank you very much.
I debated on whether to pause right now, but A-Shot said this is tragedy porn, and I hate it, I think. Okay, she said another word that I'm not going to say. Which, yes, I mean, you probably saw my reaction. Most presidents, like I said, use props, people props. Here's a person I helped, here's a person who's a hero. I can't say that I remember ever, like, here's a person that was harmed by gang violence. This might be a new one. That's not usually used, but of course he's blaming immigrants for it. I believe he said that they were dreamers. I'd have to go back and check, but I think he said that they were illegal children, which would be a dreamer. Most dreamers do not become criminals. Of course, the story is very sad, but it's also, as I hope all of the people watching me know, this is also a very atypical story and a clear cherry pick, of course. He did say some things that I found rather interesting in the last few minutes, that he wants to rebuild roads or build new roads, which would be interesting. I don't know where he would do that next to the existing roads, perhaps, and waterways. That's an interesting one. Is he going to make new canals or something? I don't know. He talked about vocational schools. So here's the thing, right? And this may not be something that is necessarily true across all fields, but the skills gap is not really a thing. A lot of skilled labor is just disappearing as automation takes over. So these aren't jobs that are like sitting there waiting to be filled. We just don't have the people. These jobs just don't exist anymore for many jobs. Plumbing and electricians and various other construction types, skilled construction types. Those aren't going anywhere, at least anytime soon. So those would be valuable to get into if you still could. But vocational schools are having just as hard of a time as college and universities. So that's kind of a non-issue that he's bringing up. That a lot of people are like, yeah, that's right. We need more plumbers. The country's not hurting in that regard. He did bring up paid family leave, which I think that was actually kind of a shocker for him to say, because it's something that's a very feminist issue. I agree with it personally, but it's not something I would have thought he would agree with. I am for that. He also talked about giving former inmates, felons. He talked about giving felons a second chance at life. I personally agree with this. We're very good at punishing people in this country. We're not very good at rehabilitating people. Once you do a crime, in many states anyway, you're not allowed to vote. A felony, you're not allowed to vote ever again. So if you do a felony when you're 18, even if you're 60 and you've never done anything wrong ever again, not even a speeding ticket, you don't get to vote, which is I think bad, and it disproportionately affects minorities. It's also very hard to get a job if you're a felon, because you have to check that box, and an employer is almost always going to take someone who didn't check the box over someone who did. whether or not you agree with whether employers should be asking that question is kind of up to you. I personally don't agree with that. I mean, yeah, if you've been convicted of stealing, you probably shouldn't be a banker or something. Um, but if you're convicted of a drug offense 20 years ago, that shouldn't stop you from, I don't know, any job. Like when I worked at Subway, the sandwich shop, uh, people had that question was on there. Anyway, it's ridiculous. So I don't know if what he means is restoring voting or stopping employers from asking, which a few states have done recently. And they've also recently started to give felons their voting rights back after a certain amount of time. So that's good too. I don't know if he means on the federal, but we'll see. Sorry to stop already, but people are talking about UBI in the chat, and just really quickly, I'd like to mention I did make a video about this, the economic systems video. If we got rid, people are asking how would we pay for it? If we got rid of all current unemployment and food stamps and Social Security, and then replaced it with UBI, that would actually be cheaper than what we have right now. We could already pay for UBI for everyone if we got rid of several current systems that would no longer be necessary if we started universal basic income. So there you go.
I want you to know that 320 million hearts are right now breaking for you. We love you. Thank you.
I guess we're still on the tragedy porn. I forgot about that.
Imagine the depths of that kind of sorrow. We can make sure that other families never have to endure this kind of pain. Tonight I am calling on Congress to finally close the deadly loopholes that have allowed MS-13 and other criminal gangs to break into our country. We have proposed new legislation that will fix our immigration laws and support our ICE and Border Patrol agents. These are great people. These are great, great people that work so hard in the midst of such danger, so that this can never happen again.
People die to gang violence all the time. Increasing border security is not going to stop this.
The United States is a compassionate nation. We are proud that we do more than any other country anywhere in the world to help the needy, the struggling, and the underprivileged all over the world. But as President of the United States, my highest loyalty, my greatest compassion, my constant concern is for America's children, America's struggling workers, and America's forgotten communities. I want our youth to grow up, to achieve great things. I want our poor to have their chance to rise. So tonight I am extending an open hand to work with members of both parties, Democrats and Republicans, to protect our citizens of every background, color, religion, and creed. My duty, and the sacred duty of every elected official in this chamber, is to defend Americans, to protect their safety, their families, their communities, and their right to the American dream. because Americans are dreamers too. Here tonight is one leader in the effort to defend our country, Homeland Security Investigation Special Agent Celestino Martinez. He goes by DJ and CJ. He said, call me either one. So we'll call you CJ. Served 15 years in the Air Force before becoming an ICE agent and spending the last 15 years fighting gang violence and getting dangerous criminals off of our streets. Tough job. At one point, MS-13 leaders ordered CJ's murder, and they wanted it to happen quickly. But he did not cave to threats or to fear. Last May, he commanded an operation to track down gang members on Long Island. His team has arrested nearly 400, including more than 220 MS-13 gang members. And I have to tell you, what the Border Patrol and ICE have done, we have sent thousands and thousands and thousands of MS-13 horrible people out of this country or into our prisons. So I just want to congratulate you, CJ. You're a brave guy. Thank you very much. And I asked CJ, what's the secret? He said, we're just tougher than they are. And I like that answer. Now let's get Congress to send you, and all of the people in this great chamber have to do it. We have no choice. CJ, we're going to send you reinforcements, and we're going to send them to you quickly. It's what you need.
I half expected him to say we're going to send you to Disneyland or something.
Weeks, the House and Senate will be voting on an immigration reform package. In recent months, my administration has met extensively with both Democrats and Republicans to craft a bipartisan approach to immigration reform. Based on these discussions, we presented Congress with a detailed proposal that should be supported by both parties as a fair compromise, one where nobody gets everything they want, but where our country gets the critical reforms it needs and must have. Here are the 4 pillars of our plan. The first pillar of our framework generously offers a path to citizenship for 1.8 million illegal immigrants who were brought here by their parents at a young age. That covers almost 3 times more people than the previous administration covered. Under our plan, those who meet education and work requirements and show good moral character will be able to become full citizens of the United States over a 12-year period. The second pillar fully secures the border. That means building a great wall on the southern border, and it means hiring more heroes like CJ to keep our communities safe. Crucially, our plan closes the terrible loopholes exploited by criminals and terrorists to enter our country, and it finally ends the horrible and dangerous practice of catch and release. The third pillar ends the visa lottery, a program that randomly hands out green cards without any regard for skill, merit, or the safety of American people. It's time to begin moving toward a merit-based immigration system, one that admits people who are skilled, who want to work, who will contribute to our society, and who will love and respect our country. The fourth and final pillar protects the nuclear family by ending chain migration. Under the current broken system, a single immigrant can bring in virtually unlimited numbers of distant relatives. Under our plan, we focus on the immediate family by limiting sponsorships to spouses and minor children.
Did you hear all the hisses in the background? That was hilarious. Because it's ridiculous. What he's saying right now is ridiculous.
This vital reform is necessary not just for our economy, but for our security and for the future of America. In recent weeks, 2 terrorist attacks in New York were made possible by the visa lottery and chain migration. In the age of terrorism, these programs present risks we can just no longer afford. It's time to reform. These outdated immigration rules and finally bring our immigration system into the 21st century. These 4 pillars represent a down-the-middle compromise and one that will create a safe, modern, and lawful immigration system. For over 30 years, Washington has tried and failed to solve this problem. This Congress can be the one that finally makes it happen. Most importantly, these 4 pillars will produce legislation that fulfills my ironclad pledge to sign a bill that puts America first. So let's come together, set politics aside, and finally get the job done. These reforms will also
Like 2
support
people stood for
our
that.
response to the terrible crisis of opioid and drug addiction. Never before has it been like it is now. It is terrible.
Okay, since he's starting to move on to a different topic, I find it hilarious. I don't know if this is on purpose, that he called it, well, they are the 4 pillars, and he also said that it's a middle road, kind of borrowing from Islam and Buddhism, I guess, for that. So the first one was path to citizenship. Fine, people have been talking about that for, like he said, 30 years. It was put on his desk, though, for this shutdown, and he didn't do it. Then he talks about border security and the wall. Hiring more border agents doesn't and hasn't helped. We had a surge a few years back, and it didn't do anything. Building the wall, like I said, he was offered the wall before the shutdown, and he didn't take it. As I suspected in the beginning, and this is for what was his name, Long Stem Razors. As I said in the beginning, he was offered the wall for this shutdown, before the shutdown, and he didn't take it. And I think that's because he wants to campaign on it in 2020, because build the wall is a much better slogan than, well, we got a bill started and it's going to take longer than we thought and it's not really effective so far, but it will be. Like, one of those is clearly a better campaign slogan than the other. The visa lottery system and merit-based immigration is silly. We already have merit-based immigration. I'm actually planning a video on this here soon, 2 or 3 videos from now. Already it's very hard to get into the United States legally. You have to have a college degree or be in an industry that is needing people, usually tech or medicine. We only take like the best when it comes to visas anyway. And I don't know the specifics of the lottery, but I know that it is merit-based already. So saying that we're going to make it merit-based is kind of like we're just going to keep it how it is, I guess. The chain migration thing, though, people were hissing, and I think people in the chat were misconstruing who was hissing. I do believe, and I may be wrong about this, but I believe it was the Democrats hissing because what he was saying was ridiculous. We don't have a chain migration system where one person can bring in virtually unlimited amounts of people with them. That's just ridiculous. That's not the case. Clearly not the case. I can't even believe people are going to believe it, though, because it makes kind of sense in their heads, and it's just not true. I mean, yeah, you can have your extended family visit you, but when it comes to actual immigration, no, that is not how it works. He said he wants to strengthen the nuclear family, which just means parents and siblings, so no more grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, and stuff, which is just not how it is right now anyway. So every president does this also. They say stuff that already is, and they take credit for it. Let's go through the comments here. There's been quite a few. The last standing ovation, very few people. I laughed. There was only like 2 people who stood up. Set politics aside is, yes, it is said usually by party in power, like, hey, we need to stop party politics, which is funny because the Republicans control everything right now, so party politics doesn't exist right now. They don't have a supermajority in the Senate, which is a good thing. If one party was in power completely, things would end up very bad. I mean, one party is in power in Russia and China, various other, North Korea. You don't want a country with only one party in power. That would be obnoxious and terrible. Now he's going to talk about the opioid crisis, that it's worse than it's ever been before, and that's because opioids are fairly new. Prescription opioids, anyway, are fairly new, and they're being prescribed in excessive amounts to veterans specifically. I made a video about that too. The veteran suicide video, 22 clicks for 22 veterans video. Opioids are prescribed overwhelmingly, disproportionately to veterans. It's something like 800% more likely. So, yeah. Man, there is a lot going on today.
We have to do something about it. In 2016, we lost 64,000 Americans to drug overdoses, 174 deaths per day, 7 per hour. We must get much tougher on drug dealers and pushers if we are going to succeed in stopping this scourge.
In the opioid crisis, the pushers and drug dealers are doctors and pharmacies and hospitals.
My administration is committed to fighting the drug epidemic and helping get treatment for those in need, for those who have been so terribly hurt. The struggle will be long and it will be difficult, but as Americans always do, in the end, we will succeed, we will prevail. As we have seen tonight, the most difficult challenges bring out the best in America. We see a vivid expression of this truth in the story of the Holetz family of New Mexico. Ryan Holetz is 27 years old, an officer with the Albuquerque Police Department. He's here tonight with his wife, Rebecca. Thank you, Ryan. Last year, Ryan was on duty when he saw a pregnant, homeless woman preparing to inject heroin. When Ryan told her she was going to harm her unborn child, she began to weep. She told him she didn't know where to turn, but badly wanted a safe home for her baby. In that moment, Ryan said he felt God speak to him. You will do it because you can. He heard those words. He took out a picture of his wife and their 4 kids. Then he went home to tell his wife, Rebecca. In an instant, she agreed to adopt. The Holetz named their new daughter Hope. Ryan and Rebecca, you embody the goodness of our nation. Thank you. Thank you, Ryan and Rebecca. As we rebuild America's strength and confidence at home, we are also restoring our strength and standing abroad. Around the world, we face rogue regimes, terrorist groups, and rivals like China and Russia that challenge our interests, our economy, and our values. In confronting these horrible dangers, we know that weakness is the surest path to conflict, and unmatched power is the surest means to our true and great defense. For this reason, I am asking Congress to end the dangerous defense sequester and fully fund our great military.
The military is well overfunded already, as I'm sure many of you already know. He wants more money for defense, which we already pay way more than the next 10 countries combined.
As part of our defense, we must modernize and rebuild our nuclear arsenal, hopefully never having to use it but making it so strong and so powerful that it will deter any acts of aggression by any other nation or anyone else. Perhaps someday in the future there will be a magical moment when the countries of the world will get together to eliminate their nuclear weapons. Unfortunately, we are not there yet, sadly. Last year, I also pledged that we would work.
I'm sorry. One moment. He pulled back there for a clap, and nobody clapped. I found that quite funny. There's no need to increase our nuclear power. As I'm sure you all know, we have more than anyone else. Updating it is also... our nuclear weapons are currently operate on like 60s technology, which is actually somewhat of a good thing. Because it makes it unhackable. You know, you're not going to be able to hack a computer that runs on a 5.5 or 5.25 inch floppy disk as well. So updating it is kind of a meaningless term, and making it stronger is unnecessary. Our nuclear weapons are already a deterrent, and if they're not already a deterrent, making them newer and more numerous isn't going to change that. So, yeah, some of the stuff he's saying tonight is just ridiculous. But, you know, that's what I expected.
Face of the earth. 1 year later, I am proud to report that the coalition to defeat ISIS has liberated very close to 100% of the territory just recently held by these killers in Iraq and in Syria and in other locations as well. But there is much more work to be done. We will continue our fight until ISIS is defeated. Army Staff Sergeant Justin Peck is here tonight. Near Raqqa last November, Justin and his comrade, Chief Petty Officer Kenton Stacy, were on a mission to clear buildings that ISIS had rigged with explosive, so that civilians could return to that city, hopefully soon and hopefully safely. Clearing the second floor of a vital hospital, Kenton Stacy was severely wounded by an explosion. Immediately, Justin bounded into the booby-trapped and unbelievably dangerous and unsafe building and found Kenton, but in very, very bad shape. He applied pressure to the wound and inserted a tube to reopen an airway. He then performed CPR for 20 straight minutes during the ground transport and maintained artificial respiration through 2.5 hours and through emergency surgery. Kenton Stacy would have died if it were not for Justin's selfless love for his fellow warrior. Tonight, Kenton is recovering in Texas. Raqqa is liberated, and Justin is wearing his new Bronze Star with a V for Valor. Staff Sergeant Peck, all of America salutes you.
It's so weird to hear Trump clap.
Terrorists who do things like place bombs in civilian hospitals are evil. When possible, we have no choice but to annihilate them. When necessary, we must be able to detain and question them. But we must be clear, terrorists are not merely criminals. They are unlawful enemy combatants. And when captured overseas, they should be treated like the terrorists they are. In the past, we have foolishly released hundreds and hundreds of dangerous terrorists, only to meet them again on the battlefield, including the ISIS leader, al-Baghdadi, who we captured, who we had, who we released. So today, I'm keeping another promise. I just signed, prior to walking in, an order directing Secretary Mattis, who is doing a great job. Thank you.
There was a question in the chat. What's the difference between unlawful and lawful combatants? A lawful combatant is a uniformed, at least according to like the Geneva Conventions, is a uniformed soldier sanctioned by a country's army or military. So we haven't been at war with one of those for a very long time. Well, I guess that's not true. I guess Operation Iraqi Freedom, at least in the beginning when it was against Saddam's military, those were lawful combatants. That's the difference.
To re-examine our military detention policy and to keep open the detention facilities in Guantanamo Bay. I am asking Congress to ensure that in the fight against ISIS and al-Qaeda, we continue to have all necessary power to detain terrorists wherever we chase them down, wherever we find them. And in many cases, for them, it will now be Guantanamo Bay.
Keeping Guantanamo open is a huge mistake. Huge.
As of a few months ago, our warriors in Afghanistan have new rules of engagement. Along with their heroic Afghan partners, our military is no longer undermined by artificial timelines, and we no longer tell our enemies our plans. Last month, I also took an action endorsed unanimously by the U.S. Senate just months before. I recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Shortly afterwards, dozens of countries voted in the United Nations General Assembly against America's sovereign right to make this decision. In 2016, American taxpayers generously sent those same countries more than $20 billion in aid. That is why tonight I am asking Congress to pass legislation to help ensure American foreign assistance dollars always serve American interests and only go to friends of America, not enemies of America.
Okay, so I talked about this earlier, so I'm not going to touch on it too much, but cutting foreign aid to people who don't vote with us always is a bad idea, because those people will get their aid from someone, most likely China or Russia or some enemy of us, if we stop. It's just a bad idea. He talked about not letting the enemy know our plans. Basically what he's saying is we're going to be in Afghanistan forever. Poor choice, in my opinion. And he wants to keep Guantanamo open. I briefly interjected saying that that's a mistake. It's I mean, Obama tried for a very long time to close it. The UN says it's a bad thing. It forfeits the moral high ground for the United States to have that open. You know, we can't say like, oh, Russia imprisons political enemies forever, how horrible, when we are doing the exact same thing to, I mean, yeah, they're unlawful enemy combatants sometimes, or most of the time, but not always. It's bad. That's not PR. That's not the word I'm looking for. It presents a bad image of America to have that open still, because every country, even our friends, says it's bad. It's just bad. Moving or recognizing Jerusalem as the capital, I think was, you know, I have mixed feelings on that one. I think it was a bad idea to do it so publicly as he did. It's one thing for Israel to have it as their capital. It's another thing for the United States to say that, because Jerusalem is supposed to be like a neutral city. On the maps that I showed in the Constantinople Middle East video, like Israel was in blue, I think, and Palestine was in green. I can't remember the exact colors, but then Jerusalem was in gray, because it's not supposed to be anybody's, because every religion claims it as a holy site, so it's not supposed to be the Jewish capital city. Now, it's one, like I said, it's one thing for them to have it as their capital in practice, but to have it as their capital officially endorsed by the United States sends a bad message to, well, namely Arab countries and Muslim countries. So, yeah, I have mixed feelings on that. I don't think he handled it correctly, and threatening foreign aid over it is just, I'm going to take my ball and go home. It's childish.
As we strengthen friendships all around the world, we are also restoring clarity about our adversaries. When the people of Iran rose up against the crimes of their corrupt dictatorship, I did not stay silent. America stands with the people of Iran in their courageous struggle for freedom. I am asking Congress to address the fundamental flaws in the terrible Iran nuclear deal. My administration has also imposed tough sanctions on the communist and socialist dictatorships in Cuba and Venezuela. But no regime has oppressed its own citizens more totally or brutally than the cruel dictatorship in North Korea. North Korea's reckless pursuit of nuclear missiles could very soon threaten our homeland. We are waging a campaign of maximum pressure to prevent that from ever happening. Past experience has taught us that complacency and concessions only invite aggression and provocation. I will not repeat the mistakes of past administrations that got us into this very dangerous position. We need only look at the depraved character of the North Korean regime to understand the nature of the nuclear threat it could pose to America and to our allies. Otto Warmbier was a hard-working student at the University of Virginia, and a great student he was. On his way to study abroad in Asia, Otto joined a tour to North Korea. At its conclusion, this wonderful young man was arrested and charged with crimes against the state. After a shameful trial, the dictatorship sentenced Otto to 15 years of hard labor before returning him to America last June, horribly injured and on the verge of death. He passed away just days after his return. Otto's wonderful parents, Fred and Cindy Warmbier, are here with us tonight, along with Otto's brother and sister, Austin and Greta. Please. Incredible people. You are powerful witnesses to a menace that threatens our world, and your strength truly inspires us all. Thank you very much. Thank you. Tonight, we pledge to honor Otto's memory with total American resolve. Thank you. Finally, we are joined by one more witness to the ominous nature of this regime. His name is Mr. Ji Sung-ho. In 1996, Sung-ho was a starving boy in North Korea. One day he tried to steal coal from a railroad car to barter for a few scraps of food, which were very hard to get. In the process, he passed out on the train tracks, exhausted from hunger. He woke up as a train ran over his limbs. He then endured multiple amputations without anything to dull the pain or the hurt. His brother and sister gave what little food they had to help him recover and ate dirt themselves, permanently stunting their own growth. Later, he was tortured by North Korean authorities after returning from a brief visit to China. His tormentors wanted to know if he'd met any Christians. He had, and he resolved after that to be free. Sung Ho traveled thousands of miles on crutches all across China and Southeast Asia to freedom. Most of his family followed. His father was caught trying to escape and was tortured to death. Today, he lives in Seoul, where he rescues other defectors and broadcasts into North Korea what the regime fears most: the truth. Today, he has a new leg, but Sung Ho, I understand you still keep those old crutches as a reminder of how far you've come. Your great sacrifice is an inspiration to us all. Please, thank you.
That's some people propping right there. Holding up the crutches. I can't.
Sung Ho's story is a testament to the yearning of every human soul to live in freedom. It was that same yearning for freedom that nearly 250 years ago gave birth to a special place called America. It was a small cluster of colonies caught between a great ocean and a vast wilderness. It was home to an incredible people with a revolutionary idea that they could rule themselves, that they could chart their own destiny, and that together they could light up the entire world. That is what our country has always been about. That is what Americans have always stood for, always strived for, and always done. Atop the dome of this Capitol stands the Statue of Freedom. She stands tall and dignified among the monuments to our ancestors who fought and lived and died to protect her. Monuments to Washington and Jefferson and Lincoln and King. Memorials to the heroes of Yorktown and Saratoga. To young Americans who shed their blood on the shores of Normandy and the fields beyond, and others who went down in the waters of the Pacific and the skies all over Asia. And freedom stands tall over one more monument, this one, this Capitol, this living monument. This is the monument to the American people.
They're chanting USA.
We're a people whose heroes live not only in the past, but all around us, defending hope, pride, and defending the American way. They work in every trade. They sacrifice to raise a family. They care for our children at home. They defend our flag abroad. And they are strong moms and brave kids. They are firefighters and police officers and border agents, medics and Marines. But above all else, they are Americans. And this capital, this city, this nation belongs entirely to them. Our task is to respect them, to listen to them, to serve them, to protect them, and to always be worthy of them. Americans fill the world with art and music. They push the bounds of science and discovery, and they forever remind us of what we should never, ever forget. The people dreamed this country. The people built this country. And it's the people who are making America great again. As long as we are proud of who we are and what we are fighting for, there is nothing we cannot achieve. As long as we have confidence in our values, faith in our citizens, and trust in our God, we will never fail. Our families will thrive. Our people will prosper. And our nation will forever be safe and strong and proud and mighty and free. Thank you, and God bless America. Good night.
They're chanting again. Oh my God. Please let it be over. No encore. Okay, he's walking away. I'm gonna assume that he's done. So, all right, we can. That ending was wow. I almost can't believe that. It was like, I mean, he went through the normal stuff, the stuff that I expected him to go through, right? Tax cuts, jobs, trade deals, Iran, North Korea. He did a lot about North Korea, which was a little strange. Like, someone had commented, oh, hello, Tirzu. Yeah, someone had commented that this was, it felt like a prelude? One of those. It felt like a prelude to a declaration of war, almost. It seemed very strange to. We all know how bad North Korea is already. We don't need a reminder, and we don't need a cherry-picked story of some guy who walked thousands of miles on crutches in order to get to freedom. It was something which Trump had nothing to do with. I have a very hard time with that part, but the ending especially, it felt very much like, I don't want to draw this parallel, but it's inescapable. It felt very Nazi Germany, communist Russia. Felt very self-flagellating. The whole America is great and our monuments are great, and people chanting USA. I've never seen that in a State of the Union before. That was obnoxious almost. So, he talked a lot about immigration, something that he was offered before the shutdown, and he didn't take it, even though he was offered the wall, and he still didn't take it because I think personally that he wants to campaign on it. So we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. No, I don't have to wear these anymore since I'm not listening to anything. So, let's see. Any final comments? Yes, the prescription drugs thing. I know you just joined us here at the end, Tirzu, but I did talk at length about that. I actually agree with him on that point, that we pay way too much for prescription drugs, especially compared to other countries. Since this is something that we can directly compare between countries, right? We can argue about the quality of various surgeries all we want, but when it comes to a prescription drug, it's pretty much the same across countries, and the fact that we pay significantly more is pretty bad. So I do like that he wants to bring those prices down. He things. Okay, let's talk about things that I agree with him on. The prescription drugs thing, paid family leave. He mentioned. I like that idea. It's a pretty popular idea among most people. And then helping former inmates, or let's call them felons, get back into the rest of society. It seems like once you make a mistake, that's it. You're done. You don't get to participate in our democracy anymore, and you don't get the same access to jobs, especially. Yeah, I mean, some states have. Will he? Okay. Some states are already getting rid of that. That's cool. People in the chat there, people are saying Bernie's going to be doing his own thing. I actually don't like that the opposite party does a response. That's why last year I didn't cover the response, and this year I don't intend on covering the response. I didn't like it under Obama. I don't like it now. I think they started it under Bush. I don't remember, but I didn't like it then either. A response by the opposite party just kind of seems odd to me. Okay, there we go. We need more nukes thing. Very much disagree. I think that's silly, and I don't think the military in general agrees with that either. We have more than we can handle at this point, more than enough to destroy the world several times over. We don't need more. But yeah, I do find the ending there to be very concerning. That was strange to me. The North Korea bit, especially, and then just the stroking of the American ego as if that needs to be done. So yeah, if we have any more final thoughts, I would put them in the chat now. And I realize that there's a delay, so I'll just kind of waffle for a little bit. I to the comment about it not being a prelude? Is it prelude? There's someone in the chat who should be able to correct me on that. Prelude, prelude, whatever. I don't think he wants to start a war, but it sure sounded like he was. It sounded very pre-Iraq to me. Like listing all the reasons that Saddam Hussein is bad so that we can invade. That's what it felt like. I sincerely hope that's not the plan, but it did feel like that. Yes, Sessions' obsession with weed. That's let's call it what it is. That's a crackdown on minorities. That's what that is. The opioid crisis disproportionately affects white people. So we'll see where he goes with that. But the whole like let's lock up drug dealers and stuff is funny because it's doctors and hospitals. It is prelude. Okay, thank you, and thank you, little boy, for the sarcastic comment. So since I don't hear I don't see too many other things going on. This entire live stream, if you missed any of it, will be available shortly. I'll hit end and it'll do its dang it, I'm already processing, and it'll be up probably in a few hours. So yes, tested, just like I said, it felt very pre-Iraq to me. I hope that's not the case because North Korea is not somewhere I would want to go if I was in the military, especially since they have nuclear weapons. But it just wouldn't be popular. Um, so maybe that's what he's doing. But I I don't plan on doing a video on Hitler. I talked about that on Twitter. Columbus and Gandhi were the only two I set out from the start to do that. I know I'm going to say something dumb like ask my friends, but I had talked with a few people who are in the chat about my plans to do Columbus and Gandhi before I even did Columbus and Gandhi. Those were the only two people I planned on doing. Recently, I've gotten some questions about Churchill, and I might expand that out into a video, but not like specifically about Churchill in a wider context. So we'll see. But I will be around on Twitter and various other places to answer questions, I guess, if there are no more. And I hope you guys enjoyed watching it along with me. Thanks to those of you who donated in the super chat. That was very nice of you. But yeah, unless there's going to be some great speech between now and next year, it may be a while before I do this again. I'd like to live stream more often, and it's one of those Patreon rewards. If I get to a certain amount, then I'll do them every few months. So we'll see. But again, thanks everyone who stuck around and for participating in the chat and for putting up with my rambling at times, I'm sure. But yeah, see you guys with the next video.